Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 6 months of travel through space, they had finally reached Kepler 442b. The planet looked perfect for a new, human colony. Rivers, forests, and what looked like cities dotted the surface. "Captain, we're getting strange readings," said Amy Clark from her position at the communications desk. Her young face showed worry as she checked her instruments again. "There are definitely structures down there, but they're not like anything we've seen before." Dr. Lisa Brown moved closer to the screen, her eyes bright with excitement. She had spent her whole career studying the possibility of alien life. Now, at 38 years old, she might finally meet another intelligent species. "Those formations look artificial. We might not be alone after all." Commander Pete Johnson crossed his arms and frowned. As the ship's military officer, he always thought about danger first. "If there's intelligent life down there, we need to be careful. We don't know if they're friendly." Captain Miller nodded. He had been commanding ships for 20 years, and he knew Johnson was right to worry. But this was why they had come so far from Earth. Humanity needed new worlds, and they had to take some risks. "Amy, try to make contact. Use the standard first contact protocols." Amy's fingers moved quickly over her console. She sent out mathematical sequences, music, and basic pictures that any intelligent species should understand. For an hour, they waited. Nothing came back. Then suddenly, the ship's alarms began to sound. "Captain," Amy shouted. "3 large objects just appeared on our sensors. They came out of nowhere." On the main screen, 3 beautiful crystal ships appeared. They looked like they were made of pure light and glass. The ships moved in perfect formation, unlike anything humans had ever built. They were twice the size of the Liberty and seemed to shimmer as they moved. "Incoming transmission," Amy reported, her voice shaking slightly. "Put it on screen," Miller ordered. The face that appeared was unlike anything they had ever seen. The being was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished crystal. Its eyes were large and silver, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like music mixed with the ringing of bells. "Small flesh beings," the alien said. Its words were translated by the ship's computer, but the tone was hard to read. "You enter the sacred space of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Commander Zalthek. State your purpose." Captain Miller stepped forward, trying to look confident but not threatening. "I am Captain Jake Miller of the human colony ship Liberty. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We are explorers looking for new worlds to call home." The crystal being's head tilted slightly. "Humans, we have not heard of your species. You will come to our world. Our leaders wish to learn about you." Dr. Brown grabbed Miller's arm and whispered, "This is incredible. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. We have to be very careful about what we say and do." Miller nodded and spoke to the alien commander. "We would be honored to meet your leaders. We wish to learn about your people as well. Follow our ships. Do not deviate from the path we show you. Any wrong movement will be seen as an attack." The crystal ships began to move toward the planet, and Miller ordered his crew to follow. As they descended through the atmosphere, they saw cities that looked like they were grown rather than built. Tall spires of crystal reached into the sky, and everything seemed to glow with soft light. They landed at what looked like a spaceport. Hundreds of Zephyrians gathered to stare at the human ship. Dr. Brown, Commander Johnson, Amy Clark, and Captain Miller prepared to leave the ship. They wore their best diplomatic uniforms and carried translation devices. The meeting hall was enormous, with walls made of singing crystal that created beautiful music as the wind passed through them. Dozens of Zephyrian leaders sat in a circle around the humans. At the center sat the tallest Zephyrian, whose crystal skin was deep blue instead of clear like the others. "I am High Leader Morzeth," the blue crystal being announced. "Welcome to our world, humans. We are curious about your species. You look very different from us." Captain Miller bowed respectfully. "We are honored to meet you, High Leader. Our species is young compared to yours, we think. We have only recently learned to travel between stars." The conversations went well, for several hours. The humans learned that the Zephyrians were an ancient race who had controlled this part of space for thousands of years. They lived for hundreds of human years and valued tradition above all else. The Zephyrians seemed interested in human technology and asked many questions about Earth. Then came the moment that changed everything. High Leader Morzeth clapped his hands, and several Zephyrians brought in what looked like a large bowl filled with some kind of liquid. Swimming in the liquid was a small, colorful creature that looked like a cross between a fish and a butterfly. "Now we will perform the ritual of understanding," Morzeth announced. "To show trust between our peoples, we will share the living essence of our world. Each of you must consume one of these creatures while it still lives. This is how we show respect to the spirits of our ancestors." Dr. Brown's face went pale. She looked at the swimming creature and then at her captain. The small being in the bowl was clearly intelligent, with large eyes that seemed to show fear. Captain Miller felt his stomach turn. He looked at his team and saw the same horror on their faces. In human culture, eating any living creature was considered cruel, especially one that seemed intelligent. "High Leader," Miller said carefully. "In our culture, we do not eat living creatures. We would mean no disrespect, but we cannot participate in this ritual." The music from the crystal wall suddenly stopped. Every Zephyrian in the room stood up, their crystal bodies now glowing with angry red light. High Leader Morzeth's voice became harsh and cold. "You refuse the ritual of our ancestors? You insult the very spirits that guide our people?" "No, we mean no insult," Dr. Brown said quickly. "We simply have different ways of showing respect. Perhaps we could participate in a different way." But it was too late. Commander Zalthek stepped forward, his body blazing with bright light. "The flesh beings mock our sacred traditions. They come to our world and refuse our most holy ritual." The situation got worse quickly. More Zephyrians entered the hall, all of them glowing with anger. The humans found themselves surrounded by dozens of angry aliens who towered over them. "We should leave," Commander Johnson whispered to Miller. "This is going bad fast." High Leader Morzeth raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "Humans, you have shown great disrespect to our people and our ancestors. You will leave our space immediately and never return. If any human ship enters Zephyrian territory again, it will be destroyed." Captain Miller tried to salvage the situation. "Please, High Leader, let us try to understand each other better. Surely we can find common ground." But Morzeth was done talking. He made a gesture, and the Zephyrian guards moved toward the humans. Their hands began to glow with energy that looked like controlled lightning. "Leave now, or face the consequences," Morzeth said. The humans ran for their ship as fast as they could. Behind them, they could hear the angry voices of the Zephyrians getting louder. They barely made it to the Liberty before the alien guards reached them. "Get us out of here now," Miller shouted as soon as they were on board. The Liberty lifted, off just as the first energy blasts from Zephyrian weapons hit the ground where they had been standing. As they climbed toward space, 3 crystal ships followed them, firing warning shots. Amy Clark was already at her communication station, sending an emergency message back to Earth. "Captain, what should I tell them?" Miller looked at the alien. Ships chasing them, and made the decision that would change human history forever. "Tell them we've made first contact with a hostile alien civilization. Tell them to prepare for war." 6 months had passed since Captain Jake Miller's warning reached Earth. Admiral Kate Davis stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching the holographic display that showed the locations of human colonies across space. 3 red X marks showed where colonies used to be. New Eden, Harmony Station, and Port Roosevelt were gone, completely destroyed. "Show me the recordings again," Admiral Davis said to her aide. At 52, she had seen many battles, but nothing like this. The hologram showed the attack on New Eden. Crystal ships appeared out of nowhere, just like they had around the Liberty 6 months ago. But these ships were different. They were larger, darker, and they moved through space like ghosts. When human defense ships fired their missiles and energy weapons at them, the weapons passed right through the alien vessels as if they were made of air. Then the alien ships became solid again and fired back. Their weapons turned the human ships into dust in seconds. After destroying the defense fleet, the crystal ships aimed their weapons at the colony itself. In less than an hour, 50,000 people were dead. How is this possible? Dr. Ben Wright asked as he studied the recordings. The young scientist had been working day and night trying to understand the alien technology. Their ships can change from solid to something like energy. Our weapons can't touch them when they do that. Colonel Sam Torres slammed his fist on the table. The special operations leader had lost many friends in the attacks. We need to hit them back. We can't just sit here while they destroy our people. With what? Admiral Davis asked. Our entire fleet couldn't stop one of their ships. They have technology we don't understand. Lieutenant Grace Lee raised her hand from where she sat at the engineering station. The young pilot had been studying the alien ships for weeks. Admiral, I think I might have found something. Look at this. She brought up a different recording, this one from the Harmony Station attack. Watch the alien ships carefully when they phase through our weapons. See how they shimmer right before they change? Everyone leaned forward to watch. Grace was right. Just before the ships became ghost-like, they seemed to vibrate. It's a frequency, Dr. Wright said suddenly. They're using some kind of harmonic frequency to change their molecular structure. That's how they phase through solid matter. Grace nodded excitedly. And if they're using frequencies to control their matter, then maybe we can use frequencies to disrupt their control. Admiral Davis felt hope for the first time in months. Explain. Dr. Wright moved to the display and began drawing diagrams. Every material has a natural frequency that makes it vibrate. If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to prevent their ships from phasing. Or better yet, we might be able to disrupt their ships entirely. How long would it take to build weapons like that? Colonel Torres asked. Weeks, maybe, months, Wright replied. But I have an idea for something we can try right now. 3 days later, Colonel Torres led a small squadron of modified human ships toward the edge of Zephyrian space. The ships looked normal from the outside, but inside, Dr. Wright had installed powerful sonic generators that could produce specific frequencies. Remember, Torres said over the radio to his pilots, we're not trying to win a big battle here. We just want to test if our new weapons work. Lieutenant Grace Lee was flying beside him in her own modified fighter. I've got a good feeling about this, Colonel. The math says it should work. They didn't have to wait long. 2 crystal ships appeared, moving toward them in that graceful way that had terrified human pilots for months. The aliens had grown confident. They had destroyed every human force they had encountered. Here they come, Torres said. Wait for them to phase before you fire. The crystal ships began to shimmer, preparing to let the human weapons pass through them harmlessly. It was the same tactic they had used successfully in every battle. Now, Torres shouted. The human ships fired their sonic weapons. Instead of energy blasts or missiles, they sent out powerful waves of sound that couldn't be seen but could be felt through space itself. The effect was immediate. The Zephyrian ships stopped shimmering and became solid again. But more than that, they began to shake violently. Cracks appeared in their crystal hulls. It's working, Grace shouted over the radio. Keep firing. The alien ships tried to retreat, but the sonic waves had damaged their systems. One ship exploded in a shower of crystal fragments. The other ship managed to escape, but it was badly damaged. Colonel Torres could hardly believe it. We did it. We actually hurt them. When they returned to Luna Base, the whole command center erupted in cheers. For the first time since the war began, humans had won a battle against the Zephyrians. Admiral Davis smiled as she watched the battle recordings. Good work, all of you. But this is just the beginning. We need to build more of these weapons and fast. Over the next few weeks, human factories worked around the clock to build sonic weapons. Dr. Wright improved the design with each new version. The weapons became more powerful and more precise. Meanwhile, intercepted alien communications showed that the Zephyrians were confused and angry. They had expected the humans to surrender after losing a few colonies. Instead, the humans had found a way to fight back. Listen to this, Amy Clark said. Amy Clark. She had been promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer and was now working on Luna Base. We decoded a message from the Zephyrian High Command. The translated message played through the speakers. The flesh beings have developed new weapons. Our ships can no longer phase through their attacks. How is this possible? These creatures were supposed to be primitive. Colonel Torres laughed when he heard that. Primitive? They haven't seen anything yet. The first major counterattack came 2 months later. Admiral Davis led a fleet of 30 ships, all equipped with the new sonic weapons, toward the Proxima system where the Zephyrians had built a forward base. Lieutenant Grace Lee was now a squadron leader, commanding 5 of the new sonic fighters. As they approached the enemy base, she could see the crystal ships waiting for them. There were more aliens than humans, but the human ships had better weapons now. All ships. This is Admiral Davis, came the voice over the radio. Remember, these weapons work best when the aliens try to phase. Let them think they're safe, then hit them with everything we've got. The battle began just like all the others. The Zephyrian ships moved forward confidently, preparing to phase through the human weapons. They had been winning this war easily, and they expected this fight to be no different. But when they began to shimmer, the human ships unleashed their sonic weapons. The sound waves hit the alien vessels just as they tried to phase, and the results were devastating. Ships that had seemed invincible for months began to crack and break apart. The Zephyrians tried to adapt quickly. Some ships stayed solid and fought normally, but human missiles and energy weapons worked fine against solid targets. Other ships tried to retreat, but the sonic weapons had a long range. In less than an hour, the alien base was destroyed. The human fleet had lost only 3 ships, while the Zephyrians had lost more than 20. This changes everything, Admiral Davis said as she watched the enemy survivors flee. Send a message to all human colonies. Tell them we're no longer just defending. We're taking this war to them. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, High Leader Morzeth received the reports of the defeat with growing alarm. The creatures they had dismissed as primitive flesh beings were now destroying Zephyrian fleets. How did they develop these weapons so quickly? He demanded from his advisors. It has been less than 1 of their years since we first encountered them. Commander Zal Thek, who had survived the battle at Proxima, answered with uncertainty in his musical voice. High Leader, these humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered. When we destroy their colonies, they do not surrender. When we defeat their fleets, they build new weapons. They seem to thrive on conflict. Morzeth's crystal body glowed with anger and something else. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. Double our ship production. Call back our exploration fleets. If these humans want a war, we will give them one they cannot win. But even as he gave the orders, Morzeth wondered if the Zephyrian Empire had made a terrible mistake. The humans were proving to be unlike any enemy they had ever faced. And somewhere deep in his crystalline heart, he began to suspect that this war might not end the way the Zephyrians expected. 1 year had passed since the war began. General Ryan Hill stood in the ruins of what used to be the Zephyrian Command Center on the planet Vega Prime. Smoke still rose from the crystal buildings that his ground forces had destroyed just hours before. The liberation of Vega Prime was the 15th human victory in the past 6 months. Sir, we found something you need to see, Sergeant Luke Adams called out. The 31-year-old squad leader had become famous for his creative battle tactics. He led his men through the wreckage of an alien communications center. Inside, they found 3 Zephyrian prisoners. The crystal beings sat quietly, there, bodies dim and gray instead of their usual bright colors. They looked defeated. They want to talk, Adams said. The translator says they have information about Zephyrian battle plans. General Hill approached the aliens carefully. Even as prisoners, they were still dangerous. I am General Hill. Do you understand me? The tallest Zephyrian raised his head. His voice was weak and musical. I am Sub-Commander Velnath. We understand your words, human general. Good. Tell me about your military strategy. The alien's crystal face showed what looked like confusion. We do not understand how you fight. Your tactics make no sense. You attack from directions we do not expect. You use weapons in ways they were not designed for. How do you think of such things? Hill smiled grimly. This was exactly what Commander Nina Foster had predicted. The brilliant naval tactician had studied Zephyrian battle patterns for months and discovered something important. The aliens always fought the same way. Your people are predictable, Hill told the prisoner. You follow the same attack patterns every time. We learned to read your moves and counter them. 2 weeks earlier, Commander Foster had used this knowledge to win the biggest space battle of the war. She had commanded a fleet of 60 human ships against twice as many Zephyrian vessels near the Centauri system. The aliens had followed their usual formation, expecting the humans to respond with standard defensive tactics. Instead, Foster had split her fleet into small groups and attacked from 8 different directions at once. The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Their rigid formation broke apart as they tried to respond to threats from all sides. By the time the battle ended, Foster had destroyed most of the alien fleet while losing only 12 human ships. Your Commander Foster fights like no warrior we have encountered, the Zephyrian prisoner continued. She uses chaos as a weapon. Our leaders do not know how to respond to such tactics. General Hill nodded. Humans had always been good at adapting to new situations, but Dr. Alex Stone had taken that ability to a new level. The scientist had spent months studying captured Zephyrian technology, and what he had discovered changed everything. Sergeant Adams, bring in Dr. Stone's latest creation, Hill ordered. Adams returned carrying what looked like a normal human rifle, but with crystal components built into it. The weapon hummed with power that seemed familiar yet different from standard human energy weapons. We've learned to build better weapons than you, Hill told the shocked Zephyrian. We took your technology and improved it. Dr. Stone had done more than just copy alien technology. He had combined Zephyrian crystal power systems with human engineering and tactical thinking. The result was weapons that were more effective than anything either species had built alone. The hybrid weapons could switch between sonic attacks and energy blasts. They could phase through solid barriers like Zephyrian weapons, but they could also become solid again much faster. Most importantly, they were designed to be used by humans, who could adapt their fighting style in the middle of a battle. This is impossible, the Zephyrian prisoner whispered. You have had our technology for less than 1 cycle. It took our people hundreds of cycles to develop these systems. That's the difference between us, Hill replied. When we encounter a problem, we find new ways to solve it. You follow the same old patterns your ancestors used. The prisoner's crystal body flickered with what looked like fear. Our high command believes you are demons. No natural species should be able to adapt so quickly. Hill left the prisoners and walked outside to where his troops were preparing for the next operation. Human soldiers moved between the crystal ruins, setting up equipment and tending to the wounded. Many of them carried the new hybrid weapons that Dr. Stone had designed. Sergeant Adams approached him with a report. General, our scouts found the main Zephyrian supply depot about 50 kilometers north. Intelligence says it's heavily defended. How heavily? At least 200 alien troops and some kind of new defensive system we haven't seen before. Hill smiled. 3 months ago, this would have been impossible for his forces to attack, but humans had learned to fight in ways that confused and terrified their enemies. Get me Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, he ordered. Santos led the human special operations teams that had become legends among both human and alien forces. Santos arrived within minutes. She was a small woman who looked more like a teacher than a soldier, but she had led more successful raids than any other human commander. Colonel, I need you to take that supply depot. Use whatever tactics you think will work. Santos studied the intelligence reports quickly. I'll need 40 volunteers and some of the new equipment Dr. Stone developed. You'll have whatever you need. 6 hours later, Santos and her team approached the Zephyrian supply depot. The aliens had built it inside a crystal cavern that was supposed to be impossible to attack. The only entrance was heavily guarded, and the walls were too thick for normal weapons to penetrate. But Santos had brought something special. Dr. Stone had developed new explosive devices that used Zephyrian crystal technology to create focused sonic blasts. Instead of trying to break through the thick walls, the explosives would make them vibrate until they cracked. Remember, Santos told her team over the radio, we're not just trying to destroy their supplies. We want to capture as much of their technology as we can. The attack began at midnight. Santos's team placed the sonic explosives at precise points around the cavern walls. When they detonated, the entire crystal structure began to shake like an earthquake. The Zephyrian guards inside panicked. They had never experienced anything like this before. Their crystal bodies, which were perfectly adapted to their normal environment, became a disadvantage when the ground itself became unstable. Human soldiers poured through the cracks in the walls, using their flexibility and quick thinking to navigate the unstable terrain. The Zephyrians tried to use their standard defensive formations, but the shifting ground made their careful positions useless. Within 2 hours, Santos had captured the entire depot. More importantly, they had taken hundreds of Zephyrian prisoners and seized enough alien technology to keep Dr. Stone busy for months. When the reports reached High Leader Morzeth on the Zephyrian homeworld, his crystalline body turned dark blue with rage and fear. "They have taken our most secure supply depot," he told his council. "How is this possible? The crystal caverns were supposed to be impregnable." Commander Zalthek, who had barely survived 3 battles with human forces, tried to explain. "High Leader, these humans do not fight like any species we know. They seem to enjoy finding new ways to solve problems. Every time we develop a defense, they find a weakness we never considered. Then we will crush them with overwhelming force," Morzeth declared. "Gather every ship in the Empire. We will destroy their homeworld and end this war." But even as he gave the orders, Morzeth felt doubt creeping into his ancient mind. The humans had surprised them at every turn. Their primitive species had somehow become the most dangerous enemy the Zephyrian Empire had ever faced. On Luna Base, Admiral Kate Davis received intelligence reports about the massive Zephyrian fleet gathering near their homeworld. Instead of fear, she felt grim satisfaction. "They're finally going to commit everything they have," she told her staff. "This is our chance to end the war." General Hill's voice came through the communication system from Vega Prime. "Admiral, my ground forces have captured enough alien technology to outfit our entire fleet with hybrid weapons." Commander Foster added her own report. "Our battle simulations show that if we can force them to fight on our terms, we can win a decisive victory." Admiral Davis looked at the tactical displays showing human and alien positions across the galaxy. The war that had started with humanity as the underdog was about to reach its final phase. And for the first time since it began, she was confident that humans would be the ones still standing when it ended. 18 months after the first meeting with the Zephyrians, Admiral Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the crystal homeworld of Crystallis Prime grow larger on his screen. The man who had started this war as a peaceful explorer was now leading the largest human fleet ever assembled. 300 ships surrounded him, all equipped with the hybrid weapons that Dr. Alex Stone had perfected. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported Captain Tony Clark, Amy's younger brother who had become one of the fleet's best tactical officers. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was familiar. High Leader Morzeth looked older and more tired than when they had first met. His crystal body was dim, lacking the bright glow it had shown during their disastrous first encounter. "Admiral Miller," the alien leader said, "I remember you. You were the captain who refused our sacred ritual." "I remember too," Miller replied calmly. "You declared war on my people because we wouldn't eat a living creature." Morzeth's crystal face showed what might have been regret. "We believed you were primitive beings who would surrender after we destroyed a few of your colonies. We were wrong about many things." Around Crystallis Prime, the remnants of the once mighty Zephyrian fleet waited in defensive positions. There were maybe 100 crystal ships left, all that remained of the thousands the Empire had once commanded. Human forces had systematically destroyed the rest over the past 6 months. "We offer surrender," Morzeth continued. "Our military leaders tell me that further resistance is hopeless. Your species has proven superior in warfare." On Earth, President Carol Webb watched the transmission from her office. At 56, she had led humanity through its first interstellar war. Now she faced a choice that would define how the human race was remembered by history. "Admiral Miller," she said through the communication system, The decision is yours. You've earned the right to choose how this ends." Miller looked around his bridge at the officers who had fought beside him for 18 months. Captain Tony Clark was there, along with many others who had lost friends and family to Zephyrian attacks. They had every right to want revenge, but Miller remembered something Dr. Maya Johnson had told him. The xenopsychologist had spent months studying captured Zephyrians, trying to understand how their minds worked. "Admiral," Dr. Johnson's voice came through the ship's communication system from her research station. "I've learned something important about their species. The Zephyrians aren't naturally aggressive. They're actually quite peaceful most of the time, but their culture is based on strict traditions that never change. When we refused their ritual, their minds couldn't process it. They saw it as a threat to their entire way of life." Miller nodded slowly. He had suspected something like this. "Dr. Johnson, in your opinion, are they likely to attack us again if we show mercy?" "No, sir. I believe this war has changed them, fundamentally. They've learned that their rigid thinking doesn't work against adaptable opponents. Some of the prisoners have even started asking questions about human culture. That's something Zephyrians never did before." Miller made his decision. "High Leader Morzeth, we accept your surrender, but we have conditions." The alien leader's body flickered with what looked like hope. "Name your terms. First, you will help us rebuild the colonies you destroyed. Second, your people will learn about human culture so this kind of misunderstanding never happens again. Third, we want to establish trade and scientific exchange between our species." Morzeth was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "These terms are unexpected. You do not demand tribute or territory." "We never wanted your territory," Miller replied. "We just wanted to live in peace." The surrender ceremony took place on the surface of Crystallis Prime, in the same crystal hall where the war had begun. High Leader Morzeth formally ended hostilities between the Zephyrian Empire and humanity. But the most important moment came afterward, when Captain Tony Clark approached a group of young Zephyrians who had gathered to watch the humans. "Are you really going to help rebuild our damaged cities?" one of them asked. Her crystal body was pale green, showing curiosity rather than fear. "Yes," Tony replied through his translator. "That's what humans do. We help each other, even former enemies." The young Zephyrian's body brightened with amazement. "But we destroyed your colonies, we killed your people. Why would you help us?" Tony thought about his sister Amy, who had died in the attack on the Harmony Station colony. He thought about all the friends he had lost in the war. Then he looked at this young alien who had probably never made the decision to hurt anyone. "Because the war is over," he said simply. "And because staying angry won't bring back the people we lost." Over the following weeks, human engineering teams worked alongside Zephyrian builders to repair the damage from the final battle. The aliens were amazed by human construction techniques that could adapt to different situations quickly. The humans were impressed by Zephyrian crystal technology that could grow buildings instead of just assembling them. Dr. Stone found himself busier than ever, but now he was building tools for construction instead of weapons for war. "It's remarkable," he told Admiral Miller. "Zephyrian technology is perfect for creating things, but they never thought to use it for destruction until they met us. And our technology is designed for problem solving, which made it perfect for warfare. So we each learned something from the other," Miller observed. "Exactly. And now we can combine our knowledge for better purposes." The real breakthrough came when Dr. Maya Johnson began working with Zephyrian scholars to understand each other's cultures. She discovered that the ritual that had started the war was actually about sharing life experiences, not cruelty. They see eating the living creature as a way to understand its life completely, she explained to President Webb during a video call. "In their culture, this is the highest form of respect. They couldn't understand why we saw it as cruelty." "And now?" Webb asked. "Now they're creating new rituals that humans can participate in, and some of them are asking to visit Earth to learn about our customs." 6 months after the war ended, the first Zephyrian delegation arrived on Earth. High Leader Morzeth himself led the group, his crystal body now bright blue with what the humans had learned was curiosity and hope. "Your world is very different from ours," he told President Webb as they walked through Central Park in New York. "So much life existing together without perfect order. How do you make decisions when everyone thinks differently?" Webb smiled. "That's exactly how we make good decisions. When everyone thinks differently, we consider more possibilities." Morzeth stopped walking and stared at a group of children playing soccer nearby. Human and Zephyrian children were playing together, their different abilities making the game more interesting rather than more difficult. "For 3,000 years our empire conquered other species because we believed our way was the only correct way," he said quietly. "In 18 months, your people taught us that different ways of thinking can make everyone stronger." "It only took 18 months because you were willing to learn," Webb replied. "That takes courage." As they watched the children play, both leaders thought about how quickly everything had changed. A war that had started with a cultural misunderstanding had ended with two species learning to appreciate their differences. Admiral Jake Miller, now serving as the first human ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire, received daily reports about new colonies being established jointly by both species. Humans brought their adaptability and problem-solving skills, while Zephyrians contributed their advanced technology and long-term planning abilities. The war against humans had indeed turned deadly fast, but not in the way anyone had expected. It had died quickly once both sides chose understanding over conflict. And from its end had grown something neither species could have built alone. A partnership that would carry both races to heights they had never imagined possible. In the end, the greatest human victory wasn't military. It was showing their former enemies that there was a better way to resolve differences than war. And perhaps that was the most human thing of all.